Is it five? Five? And 4 members of staff and a reporter, I believe. Okay, so let's just run through the agenda. We're going to swap the agenda around a little bit. We're going to go through the routine housekeeping stuff and then take Lisa from One Church, who has kindly accepted our invitation, my invitation, to come and talk to us about the work they hope to be doing on the building they've just or about to take over. We're assuming this goes through cabinet, by the way. There's no reason to doubt that it won't go through cabinet, but we are preempting them and looking at them. So first of all, Lauren, if you can help me, please. Oh, it'd be a good idea. Really keen. I'll do this for a few meetings. To get our members to introduce themselves. Okay. So my name is Andrew Gravels. I'm a city councillor, and I represent Abbeydale and chair this committee. Howard.
I'm Councillor Howard Hyman, and I'm a councillor. Pie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Chambers, and the councillor for Quedgley Field Court.
Hi, I'm Linda Castle, councillor for Long Levens.
I'm Angela Conda, councillor for Kingsholm and Wootton.
Karen James, councillor for Kingsway.
I'm Kate Highland, councillor for Abbeymead.
I'm Andy Bell, councillor for Grange.
I'm Anne, councillor Radley, and I'm one of the Elmbridge councillors.
Joshua Taylor, councillor for Barnwood.
Louise Walker, councillor for Abbeydale.
Tree Chambers de Boos, councillor for Moorland and vice chair.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. So Howard on my left was right to point out that he's one of the spokespersons for this committee. Because we're a home council, we have a chair, and then I'm from one party and he's from another, and Tree is vice chair from another party. So it's all very fair and even-handed. Okay, so I'm going to whiz through the agenda. Lauren, help me out if I get this wrong. I'm going to take apologies for absence first of all. So just one apology for absence. That's Councillor Terry Pullen. Okay, declarations of interest. Members, any declaration of interest they want to declare? So, Councillor Louise Walker.
Yeah, I just wish to declare an interest that I'm an employee of the Trussell Trust Gloucester Food Bank.
Okay, that's good. And item 3, declaration of party whipping. This is where anybody has to tell us if the party they belong to has whipped them, told them which way to vote, because scrutiny is totally non-political. There's no thinking through along party lines. So take it as declaration of party whipping, as nobody wants to declare anything looking around the room. Minutes of the last meeting, can I sign those as a true record? Those of you that were here, very few in number actually. Declan and Jeremy, possibly you were the only two who were here last time. Took those as a true record. Okay, so keep going. So petitions and deputations. Haven't been notified of any petitions or deputations to this committee, which takes us on to item 9, the community asset transfer of the social club at Tuffley Park. So again, thank you so much for Lisa and your 2 colleagues sat behind you for coming along this evening, and really happy to welcome you and invite you to say a few words about what you envisage One Church is going to be doing for the community in this location. And hopefully if you can stay and answer a few questions. I think it's really important to do this because I think it just brings these pages and pages of papers alive, because all of them are dealing with real people here in Gloucester. And I was so chuffed that you were happy to accept our invitation to come and just say a few words. So over to you. Thanks. That's really kind.
There you go.
You're
might be able to hear me better now. I just want to say thank you for your invitation to come in. And like you say, it's nice to bring the human side to the application that we've made. And I just wanted to let you know who I am, who we are, and what we're about a little bit. So we've, in fact, this September we'll be celebrating our 10th birthday as a church community in Podsmead. And for the last 10 years, we've been doing our best to try and serve our community in whatever way that we can. We are a Christian organisation, obviously, but definitely not exclusively. Far from existing just for Christians, our priority, as it has been over the last 10 years, has really been about at serving our community, serving the needs of our community, and celebrating the amazing strengths in our community as well. And it's a community that has some amazing strengths and some unique challenges. And there's an awful lot in the application that you would have received that will go into much detail about some of the plans and ideas that we have about how we could use this amazing community asset to do more to serve our community. But tonight, I'd just like to give you a few headlines, really, of some of those things that we'd like to do. So firstly, we really want to make sure that we continue to help around the issue of food poverty in our community. One of the first things we did when we arrived in the community was wanting to serve people that were finding themselves in that really difficult gap. And that was something that we would love to continue to do. And we run a really successful free pop-up cafe at the moment. And it's amazing to be able to serve people through that way. And we'd love to continue to do that on a greater scale. We run free breakfasts at the moment weekly, and serve community meals as well. And we'd like to increase that by looking at the possibility of running a food bank from that place or a social supermarket. And also, we're really aware of the need for like a resource bank that can serve the community too. It's often that we are doing our best to find money or find equipment that people can donate to us to, for example, a few Christmases ago, pay for beds for an entire family who are currently sleeping on the floor. So we'd love to continue some of that work around the needs that face our community in that way. Secondly, we'd really like to continue to build fun, healthy, strong and engaged community in the area. And the way that we'd love to look at doing that is increasing our ability to serve the kids of our community through kids programmes, parent programmes and parent and toddler events. At the moment, we're really hamstringed that we're not able to do that midweek due to space, as well as running things like debt counselling services that would really help people that are trying to do their best but are just stuck. And the building gives us a really unique opportunity to upskill people that are trying to get into work as well. So if they can come and work alongside us running the cafe, for example, and learning on the job how to hold down a job and those sorts of things can become a really great opportunity to help people get that leg up into work. As well as our youth programmes, our young leadership programmes, which is really exciting to be able to run that from a base would be amazing. And of course, the way that we interact with the strong sporting community that already exists in Tuffley Park and making sure that relationship works really, really well and that we can encourage and celebrate that. As well as that, we have run over the last 10 years many large-scale community events. For example, at Easter, we had 649 people come out to our Easter Fun Day, and we were able to send home, I think it was nearly 500 Easter eggs to children over that period of time, which was wonderful. And just to see pictures popping up on social media of families having a great free day out was wonderful. And we want to continue to do that. Thirdly, we'd love to do our part to curtail the loneliness epidemic that is just nationwide at the moment. And by using this wonderful building to be able to be a touch point for people to make real human connections with people. We'd love to do that by creating and maintaining a safe, approachable building, which it has a great welcome every time you walk through the doors. A cafe that doesn't just serve drinks, but gives people a real human connection with people and possibly help them take next steps into feeling more confident to being a part of community and what that looks like. And of course, the encouragement of partner organisations and local people to host groups and ideas and have a space where they can do that, to create this sense of like, I've got this idea about what I'd love to do, and I think I'd love to make some friends to do it. We'd love to be able to help facilitate those sorts of things with the building. You know, it's our hope that in taking on this amazing community asset that we might actually be able to upscale our effectiveness in serving our community of Podsmead and the surrounding areas really, really well, and create a hub where people can come in, get a great welcome, and hopefully send them out feeling like bigger people ready to face the next part of their day. That's really what we would love to do.
Wow, that was seriously impressive. Any questions or comments for Lisa? Linda, Steph?
Thank you. Hi. How are we going to raise the funds? Because it sounds all fantastic, and there's other places that are struggling. So I'm just wondering how you're going to raise the funds.
Yeah,
To do all
absolutely.
these lovely things.
Yeah, so there's details in the document that you can have a look at where our funds are as a network. We are a network of churches, which helps. But we have an incredibly generous community that's part of that, incredibly generous volunteers as well. And we will be looking at ways that we supplement our current generosity, if you like, with funding applications and those sorts of things for specific targeted projects. But a lot of the things that I've already outlined in there are things we're currently doing, but having to do them on a much smaller scale because we haven't got a building, or we're having to figure out how to work around other needs and issues. But that's really my best answer for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your great explanation of what you do at One Church. As you mentioned, it's a Christian organisation, and that you've got a network of churches. What's the governance of the organisation?
Yeah, so we are part of the Assemblies of God church denomination. We're also well governed. We're in contact with the Charities Commission, for example, regularly making sure that we're up to date with all the things that we need to do. We have an amazing board of directors who cover lots of different areas there. So we've got somebody that covers like safeguarding, those sorts of things, as well as the finance and risk, all that sort of stuff, which is above me. And I don't know a lot of the details of that, but I'm definitely about implementing that. But if you had further questions in that regard, I can definitely put you in touch with somebody who can answer specifics.
Sorry, thank you. And just one other question. So you said about involving, you're not exclusively Christian. How would you make other sort of religious or people with other religious beliefs know that they're welcome?
Yeah.
To access the debt services, etc.
Absolutely. I think we've got a good record with that already. So, for example, through the cafe that we run, we have all different cultures, backgrounds, beliefs that come in and use our services there. And I think our 10-year reputation around the area is speaking for us. We don't, we try and love first, rather than going, oh, and we're Christians, by the way. I think it's right for us to describe that to you guys tonight on the committee, but that's not the first thing that we need to be telling people. We want to tell people you're very welcome here.
Thank you.
It's very interesting. I'm really great what you said. So I take it then this is not a social club anymore.
Well, I
As
think...
I see it as it stands now, because I've been there,
Yeah.
that it's a social club that serves beer.
Yeah.
And it sounds as though, I don't think it's going to be that anymore, is it?
I think that you're right, but I think it's also a space that will be a social space, whether or not it's a traditional social club. I would say that it will be a social club of a different standing, and it will be open for hire for people to use for parties and those sorts of things as well. But in that traditional sense of a social club.
As I'm aware, I've been made aware, the original application included you had to run the bar. Now, from what I gather, that's changed and you've come in and you're not actually saying you're going to run a bar. Well, what happened to the other applicants that pulled out because they couldn't say we don't want to run a bar? So as far as I'm concerned, there are other applicants who should be looked at again.
Can I just chip in there? I'm not going to try and stop the question, but I'm just going to ask some of our guys from the City Council on the left of the table here, who can answer that question about we insisted. Is that what you're saying? The City Council
Andrew, they insisted that they ran a bar. That was the original tender.
So is it Jane? Jane?
Prerequisite that I remember from the process was that the books were actually accommodated and it had to be community use. It did not have to be a bar in the sense of alcoholic provision. That was not a prerequisite of the application.
Sorry, sounds like someone's got their wires crossed, Andrew.
Yeah, maybe. I think this is a great idea. I really do, because it was failing. It was totally failing. I take it you're not going to pick up the debt then that they owe to the council.
I hope not. No, no. And could I speak to that as well? Is that okay? And I totally hear you and agree. And I was under the same understanding that you've outlined there. I think with all these things that we've got an opportunity to try something different and try something that might bring benefit to the community. And that's all we want to do. There's no behind the scenes motives or anything like that. We're trying to do something that will really add value to wide parts of the community, and that's our goal.
I think anything that brings a bit of Christianity into our region is always going to be good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions looking around the room? Oh, a few. So Anna and then Josh.
Thank you, Chair. I know One Church a little bit. You know, I've been out and seen the work that you do in Podsmead, and I was curious, if you've got this new venue that you're planning a lot of new activity for, what's going to happen to the work that you're already doing, sort of based from the Ramblers?
Yeah, so really a lot of the work that we do from the Ramblers at the moment is predominantly on a Sunday, because post-COVID we weren't able to take on the same slots that we had for our youth work, for example, and those sorts of things. And so a lot of our stuff at the moment, we pop up in places to be able to run those things. So our main programmes will be moved to the new buildings. I have a very good relationship with the guys at the Ramblers, and they totally understand that, and the implications that the building at the moment hamstrings what we could achieve, and they totally understand that. And actually we work really well in partnership together, so we've already spoken about the potential to do multiple things at the same time, for example. And we're currently so we have a great connection with Blackbridge Mutual Benefit Society, and we do a lot of work with them, and just trying to pop up in different places. At the moment, there's the venue on Scott Avenue that there are plans there for that to be used slightly differently. So that again, if the building is going to be continued to be used in the way that it is on Scott Avenue, we'd love to continue to do something there to make that connection across the community. But most of it will be moving across to the site at Tuffley Park.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for all that you said. I mean, it does sound very interesting. It sounds like great community work for Podsmead, so thank you very much, and for your excellent speech as well. Apologies if it's a silly question, but in your remarks, you spoke about kind of increasing the capacity and the output of what you do with the new buildings. So how are you going to achieve that? I mean, do you have more resources which are going to become available, and how are you going to make people aware of your increased provision?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to take a phase-by-phase approach. We're not just going to rock up and try and do all 20 million things that are exciting me in my brain straight away. So we'll take a phased approach to that, which is outlined in the document that we've sent in. But also we're quite fortunate to have a really good human resource bank of lots of people that just want to be able to give time and hours to serve in different ways, and that will upscale over time. But also our real desire is that we have people from Podsmead, Tuffley, Linden, who are coming along to the events or coming along to the groups, really enjoying them, and then we're able to really empower them to take part in the activities and take part as being part of teams and those sorts of things. So it becomes a really organic process where people catch our heart for the community and what we'd like to do, and then are able to become a part of that also. That's a really key thing for me. And we're already seeing it. So we started 10 years ago and we had a bunch of young people that were part of that first part, and now they're all adults and scaring me coming with children, and I'm not ready to be a grandmother yet. But they're taking part in all those activities and helping us run the cafe and helping us do these different things. And I think that's the idea behind it. And we'll have to scale financially as well with the investment that we put into it, and look at some of the ways that we do that to make it sustainable.
So take on and then
Thank you, Chair. I promise this will be brief. How long's your lease?
10 years.
How long did you want?
I think that the directors said 10 years.
That's nice to hear, because often there's discrepancy between what is offered and what is got. So if you wanted 10 years, you'd be offered 10 years. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
I could talk to you from here, can I? Who's going to be responsible for the maintenance of the building? This is a very old building, and I live here, so I've been going there since I was 8 years old to watch cricket.
Yeah.
To watch great cricketers.
Yeah. So we already run a building on the side of Robinswood Hill up behind the Three Oaks, which again is a very old building. It started off as an army gymnasium, I think, and there are processes that they're going through at the moment to upgrade there as well. So we have a good track records of looking after the building. It won't necessarily be me making the shots on those things, but making sure that we go through all the right ways of making sure that we maintain that building well. And like I said, we want to make sure that everything we do with excellence, so that people want to be there, want to feel welcome, feel safe, and all those sorts of things. So that's top of our agenda. And I know some work will be agreed ahead of time to make sure it's watertight and all those sorts of things before the lease is taken on.
So yeah, there's a problem with the roof. Can be very expensive. I think.
microphone.
Oh, I do apologise. I'm so loud that I normally don't need one. Yes, I've heard there's a problem with the roof. I know there's a problem with the roof actually, because I was there when it was open, and I just don't want to make sure that we're all in this together, and we don't expect you to pick up the tab for a building that we've let go rather than you have. Yeah. And to have a new start there was very important, and we want everything to be right for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm quite happy for all of us to put our hands in our pockets and make sure that your outlay is to do the inside.
Yeah.
And if we can protect the fabric of the building, then that will be down to us, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to hear from the Cabinet Member, Declan Wilson, in a minute, and also the officers. So if we take questions for Lisa, is that okay? Then we'll bring you guys forward. So Tree, then Steph, then Linda Carter again. Okay, cool. So Tree?
Oh, hi. I'm interested to hear about the idea of the One Church Cafe, and that it's already an ongoing thing. One thing I'm just a little bit unclear about is what, well, not at the moment because it's closed.
Yeah.
But when the club was open, the cafe was available for dog walkers and things like that. Is it going to be similar once you guys have it?
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's our hope. So like I said before, I've forgotten your name, sorry, but talking about the phased approach to that.
Yes.
What we don't want to do is promise overpromise and underdeliver. So we want to make sure that we build our resource to be able to do that effectively. At the moment, we're running 1 day a week. We could probably do 2 or 3 days a week, but we're not able to because we haven't got the space to do that. We'd love to be able to do that, as well as figuring out how we serve the sports community, for example, through that as well. And I actually live quite close to Tuffley Park and often walk my grandmother's dog in there, so I totally understand what you're saying, and we would love to be able to do that as much as possible.
Okay, that's good to hear, because I know sort of within the community locally, that's something that people were quite upset about, not being able to get a cuppa and meet with their friends when they were walking their dogs. And,
That's it.
And yeah, it's a nice thing to be able to do, go for a walk around and have a cup of tea or
absolutely.
ice cream or something, you know.
Absolutely, and it fits our aims for wanting to make a difference with people's ability to, you know, not be lonely and all those sorts of things. If we can create connection points, that's what we want to do.
Thank you.
Who wanted to come back? Linda? Cool. So a couple of questions from me. I was really pleased to hear you talking with such passion about tackling issues around loneliness. A lot of people I speak to think that you can't live in a city and be lonely. You've got to live up in the sticks in the North Cotswolds, and that's where lonely people are. And they take quite some convincing that there are issues around loneliness here in the middle of Gloucester. So it's good to hear that you're really gripping that and taking hold of it and trying to work hard and build on what you've already achieved. When we had an informal chat just before we kicked off the meeting, and I welcomed you and thanked you for coming. I too, like Andrew, it's not something because everybody calls Andrew's hung up about a bar, talked about the alcohol and all the rest of it. I asked because not only do I like a pint of Guinness, but also I find that the clubs that I know, the bar income is quite a significant part of their fundraising, and they can keep the bar prices low, but still manage to make a profit, which subsidises some of the community work they do, which perhaps isn't as profitable as the bar work. So how do you raise your funds if you have like a significant area of potential income which you're not exploiting?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have regular givers, so people give regularly, and that's consistent. We can track that, and I can show you the financial reports on that if you'd like to see that. And also, I mentioned grants before. I love the idea of like the cafe supplementing other free activities, for example. And I do like the idea of figuring out how we run the bar with at a place where we can use the profit to sow back into the community. What I'm not doing is saying we're absolutely going to do that, because what we want to do is we don't want to do something that makes no business sense in the long run, and that's something that I'm discussing with my directors at the moment about how do we make sure that we can and run that well rather than promising and under delivering. But that's one of the things that we could make a consideration on.
So I'm interested in as well the connection to the church. How many people what percentage, can you estimate what percentage of people who use the community facilities also then join the church and follow on from there? And you were talking in replies to Steph's question about the governance arrangements with the other denominations, other churches. Is there ever a temptation to say, to be judgmental and say, no, that's not acceptable and sorry, you're not welcome?
No, I've never had to do that so far in the last 10 years, and it's not, for me, it's about being inclusive and never about being exclusive. And so that's my stance and that's our stance. On what was the previous question, sorry? You said something and then you said something else.
The number of people who come in as use the meeting rooms, and the idea of the Easter parade sounds real fun and all the rest of it, then go on to become church members.
Yeah, there are a portion of people that do that. We don't serve from a place of like trying to curtail people into what we're doing, but we want to serve the community that way. And so there are people that have joined our church that are from the community that perhaps didn't have a faith background before, which is one thing. But like I said, all those events are never exclusive things, and it's wonderful to have all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds that come along to those sorts of things. I think what's really lovely is the way that we can make make connections in the community and then help those people connect with one another. And being able to host people, to find people in their community. So the cafe is an easy one to use, but people that have come in that were really lonely and afraid to even come across the doorway to now having friends that they meet up with at the cafe every week and play dominoes or whatever, it is a wonderful thing to see.
So just final word from me. So in my own area, which is Abbeydale, a few years ago, Morrison's, a supermarket company who wanted to demolish the Ridge and Furrow pub. They owned the land and they wanted to knock it down and build a petrol filling station. I fought Morrison's really hard because I wanted to make sure that that pub, which is a real community pub, was allowed to remain. And we won the day. And I never forgot the number of people who stopped me in my community and said, Andrew, our kids are the other side of the world. That's our one opportunity to go and have Sunday lunch and have a chat and all the rest of it. And that really hit me here hard and made me think that community pubs, community assets, call them what you will, are really, really important to people's mental health and their physical health as well. So my last question is, without wishing to jump on your bandwagon, how can we as elected members not get invited? I don't expect you to email us all and say, come to the Easter Bonnet Parade. But how does it work? Is it like an open door? You can say, you just walk in and there's somebody having coffee, just chat and all the rest of it.
Absolutely. You're all very welcome to turn up to anything we do at any time. You can, lots of our stuff's promoted through social media and those sorts of things, as well as word of mouth. But I'd like to invite you all to our 10th year celebrations as well, that will be happening in September. But you're very welcome to drop in at any point and make a connection. I'm happy for my email to be put around as well. If you want to grab a coffee and ask me some more questions, I'm really happy to do that.
So there you go. So our water papers, black and white papers. You brought it all to life. I think we're all enthused. We can see what you've got planned. I'm sure all of us are appreciative of your answers. And I think at this point, we thank you and hand over to our cabinet member lead and his team. You're very welcome to stay for that part, but at the point when we look at what happened up until the point you guys were invited to put in the tender, you'll probably have to leave because that will be a session held in
that's
secret, I think is the right word. Is that the right word, right formal words? So Declan and Jane, do you want to come forward? And Declan, as the lead member, cabinet member, would you like to say a few words? And then Jane, if you can come forward and answer any questions we have, please. We've got members with questions specifically for you. Yeah, it'd be nice to see you in front of us, if that's okay. Please, thank you. And welcome to this committee. The first cabinet member we've grilled, so you'd be a honour for both of us.
Right. Am I on? Oh, yes, I am on camera. Right. Well, a lot of what I was going to say has already been said, so I've just sort of scrapped all that. But I think I should add that we have a community asset transfer policy. Bit of a dry document, but this is exactly why this policy was written. And it's for facilities like this, that we have a community asset transfer policy. We could have just gone down the commercial route and said, let's do a commercial rent, probably get some more money in. But a commercial let wouldn't have worked well. It wouldn't have necessarily have worked as a community sports facility. And it could possibly have caused nuisance to the rest of the neighbourhood, for all we know, and it wouldn't have worked. This is the perfect site and the perfect reason why we should be considering this, and I think we should be approving this. It's worth pointing out to the rest of the committee, especially to the new members, a bit of the context here of why we've got this item tonight. The previous tenants, it's been well documented and reported, got into financial difficulties and vacated the premises, really. So we decided, or at least the previous administration decided, it was perfect for a community asset transfer. We did have a series of open days, and there were 9 applications were received, and they were reduced to a short list of 3. And of these three, the one church was by far the favoured and the best application. And if you look through the documents, you can see that not only was their application by far the most superior, it also had the strongest support within the community. It had support from bodies such as Scaris, Gloucester Food Bank and Podsmead Big Local. They were all coming together to support this application. So in many ways, it's the perfect one for ourselves. As I said, it's a 10-year lease, and I think it will fit in, it will slot in very well in that location, and it'll bring a bit of help sort of revitalise the community again and give them somewhere where they can meet and where they can socialise, and they can really start developing, becoming a community again. So I would hope that this council ultimately, I think it's a cabinet decision, but this committee will be fully in support of this application.
So we've got questions for you, I think, from members. Howard.
There's the Podsmead regeneration that's going to be happening. So do you reckon that this would be better for all the new people and the people that live there? Because the whole area is going to be regenerated. So will this be an actual asset? And rather than going down the commercial route, this will be more beneficial to that local community.
They'll all complement each other. And regard Podsmead is still a few years down the road. So we need this facility now, and the community needs the facility. And this is there really must be a presence there, because if there isn't, the building will just go into disrepair. It'll become an eyesore, and it'll become symbolic of sort of degeneration rather than regeneration. So I would expect that all of these new facilities will all sort of blend together and become one big whole. So it'll overall make a much better area for everybody.
You mentioned the previous owners got into financial difficulty. How are you going to monitor the 10-year lease so that they don't get into difficulties?
Good question. Well, in essence, once they're leasing the premises, we will be getting lease income from that, and that's really we will make it our business to make sure that it is fulfilling the aims that the one church has said is going to do. And we will be getting feedback from residents, so we will be getting, and of course we have our own local councillors as well. I'm sure we'll be taking a big interest in it as well. But I would imagine it would be fairly light touch.
Stephanie.
Hi, following on from Linda as well. So public funds are going to be used to get this building back into a good state of repair, ready for one church to take it over and not have that liability. What are we doing to get back that money from the previous tenant? And what is the current status of that company's, there was various companies, I believe, but that company, are they in liquidation? Are they not? And what are we doing to recover those funds?
I don't know the answer to that. I would have to find out and let the committee know. Did you know? Yeah, okay.
So the company have not entered liquidation voluntarily. We are working with our solicitors as it's, as you can imagine, a slightly sensitive conversation, but there are a lot of people who make up the list of creditors who are all working together to force the company into liquidation so that we can then start that process. Unfortunately, until they do go into liquidation, there isn't a great deal we can do. As landlord, we have taken the property back so that we can get it back into use. That was primarily our main concern and our focus. And then all of the costs that we are incurring, both unpaid rent, business rates, and to the state of the building, anything that was deemed a breach of the lease, it's in the hands of solicitors and going through our litigation team, and we're trying our best to go through that legal process, but it's not quick, unfortunately. But it does mean we can get the building back into use very quickly, and then that will still happen in the background in the coming months.
you want to come back? I was just looking at the monitoring officer and ask at what point, if indeed any point, we need to go into secret session to pursue this. That's all of that, but you're quite happy with us questioning in open session. Well, I think maybe members would. So what happens now, please? So there's nothing more that Jane or Declan can tell us without us going into secret session. Is that what you're saying?
Can I make a point, Chair? Irrespective of the situation of the previous tenant, in many ways it's irrelevant to this because this is going to go ahead anyway. So I think we're sort of being sidetracked maybe into a separate area that potentially, since it could go down some very difficult legal proceedings that we probably don't necessarily need to discuss tonight.
No, I think, Declan, it was made clear that with respect, no disrespect to you, it was made clear that the committee would wish to look at what happened up until the point we invited tenders from the different organisations. We did make that clear. We're not springing it on anybody. So if we want to pursue that, then I'm afraid we're going to have to go into secret session. So does that involve me reading something out? So Declan, I think you're on for every item, are you? Okay. So as soon as we go live, that was. We're back we're back on the servers and broadcasting. So Declan, and it's Ian, isn't it? Ian. Yeah, we've had the report, and thank you for getting it to us in time. And I'm sure, Declan, do you want to say a couple of words and to introduce it? You don't need a long introduction, it's quite a short report, and I'm sure we've all read it 2 or 3 times.
Okay, thank you, Chair. A little bit of context just before we start. This is the result of a motion that went before Council asking us to tackle the issue of digital exclusion. The report itself is a brief update on what we've done so far on our plan and our planned next steps. As the report says, the work is ongoing and progress will be reported back to a future meeting. So there are essentially 3 strands to this. The first one is working with DAISY, which stands for Digital Accessibility, Inclusion, Support and Innovation. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a project run by GRCC, who are an independent community action charity. We're in the middle of what you would call an exploratory partnership with DAISY. Our initial scope is to review our website. I think they have, reading through their literature, they have volunteers, I think, who review websites for to see how user-friendly they are. And they're doing that exercise of ourselves at the minute. We're also looking at potentially a project on supporting digital skills and inclusion in the future. Second strand is to help residents on lower incomes. We've had a campaign on social media, just pointing people and letting them know that if they are struggling in the cost of living crisis, that there are social tariffs that are available with both broadband and mobile providers. If you look at our website, in the cost of living section, you will see that there's a link there as well. And we've been sending out in social media tweets such as this one here, which is also telling people that they can access lower bills for mobiles and broadband if they are on universal credit. To get that message across, we engaged directly with those on universal credit. Those that were on email, we sent them, we contacted them via email. Those that went on online or on email, we sent letters to them telling them that this was available. And looking into the future, with future work potentially with DAISY, we're looking at what Tewkesbury are doing. They've got what they call a digital inclusion navigator, which again is another interesting job description, I think, but it provides direct support to residents to help encourage them to get online. We're also exploring working with other groups such as libraries, etc., to see what can be done there to encourage more people to bite the bullet, essentially, and get online as well. At the minute, we also, with regards to improving accessibility of the website, we've invested in what you call automated scanning tools that sort of they are using all sorts of algorithms. They look at our website to see how user-friendly it really is. Initially, we were 68% compliant. We're now 99% compliant, which is progress. The problem with things like our website is that if you're any of us, we're so used to it now. For example, I remember when I originally wanted to find out information about councillors, I struggled to find it on the website, but now I know it's in the About Us section. But because I know that, doesn't mean that anybody else will. So a complete stranger coming to look at the website wouldn't necessarily know that's where you find that sort of information. So therefore, by using the scanning tools and working with DAISY, we hope that we will be able to improve that. So that's initially where we've got so far, but we do have more work in progress coming up. So it's basically an update. So happy to take any questions.
That's really fine. Thanks, Declan. Questions, comments? Declan, Cabinet Member Howard, Vice spoke.
Why did I don't want it. 14.1. Do I understand then that so long as we comply with the accessibility regulations, then the risk isn't there. But if we fail to comply, there's a risk. Is that correct? Is that how it works? Is that what this is saying?
In essence, yes. There was some primary legislation passed that all websites published after 2018 must comply with the accessibility standards. There are random spot checks done on our websites, and failure to be in compliance would put us into a period of having to be forced into compliance, which obviously we would much rather be proactive with our compliance than reactive, which is one of the reasons why we've undertaken this work. But yes, if our website's not accessible, then we would potentially be in breach of the regulations. There is always a kind of compliance, kind of getting back into compliance period available, but we would prefer not to be there and just be accessible through and through.
Thank you, Ian. Any other questions, comments? Anne Radley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to see the reports as I amended the motion and I introduced many of the themes that you're now responding to. I'm interested, has there been any user testing by people to give a view on the website?
Thank you. That is really the reason why we've gone with DAISY. They have access to groups within our community who actually use these devices, and that's the testing they're going to be carrying out for us. Very shortly, we should be seeing kind of some results of that, probably in the autumn by the time they put it together. That work comes into two sides. Not only are they doing that, but they're also making video recordings as well, so we can share those with officers when they start making digital services and online services, so we can use those as learning tools and awareness tools. I think I just want to make the last point, which is one of the really positive things about DAISY is that their volunteers are within our community, and that really kind of sort of tallies with something which we want really to kind of do, which is sort of for our residents with our residents. And that's really kind of a powerful part of why we're engaged in this work, really was, yes, we want to understand the accessibility issues, but we also want to work with people in our communities as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Sorry, Louise. Yeah, Louise, Stephanie, and
Thank you, Chair. I consider you've communicated the social tariffs to people who are already on universal credit. But do you have any other examples where it's clearly signposted to people who might be going through the process of applying for universal credit? For example, at drop-in centres and other places where they get financial advice?
I think the answer to that is no, because it really only crops up on our radar when we sort of have them on the system. But that's a good point, and that's something that we could take up with DAISY, because you could find them at an earlier stage, because once you get to the stage you're describing, they're already in distress. So the answer is not yet, but that's something that we can look at.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not quite sure how the DAISY software works. I'm sure it's doing a great thing and it's talking about accessibility of our website. But one of the areas where I still feel is not great is the planning portal. And obviously there was some work being done on Ripper and Bops on that, and I don't know how much that engages the usability, which would be really interesting to know, because I think that is one thing that, you know, we really do get a lot of questions on, the community not understanding how to use that portal. And another thing that we did recently on the strategic and local plan was the consultation software, which was very user-friendly, got a lot more engagement. They still did the extra things and went out in the communities, but that software was very, very good. And if that sort of software could be used more broadly within the council, I think we get a lot more community engagements on policies, etc.
Okay, I'll take that kind of point by point. The planning portal is sometimes difficult to use, and it has some challenges associated with it, which is sometimes the language in it can be quite technical, but also it's accessing it can be less intuitive perhaps than some other services. It is a service that we buy in as part of our planning software, so we are looking to see what we can do in that space. We may be a little bit limited on how much improvements we can make in that in the short term, as it's sort of supplied to us as a sort of complete package. We will investigate what we can do there and the minor improvements we can make, and particularly around improving language and things like that to make it more understandable. So it is on our radar. It's just breaking down how we can kind of deal with that one. But yes, it's dealing with that is a particular issue. The future work that you're referring to with Ripper and Bops, they are a kind of, they are planning software that's basically being funded by a project from DLUC at the moment. And again, they have accessibility built in probably more of a kind of, more in a sort of, because of their sort of modern design. And again, we would expect to see those as kind of easier to engage with services thanks to their kind of, let's say, modern design mechanisms where they're being built really to reflect the kind of modern sort of demands on web services. That's probably about all I can say on that at the moment, other than the fact that they're on our radar and we are going to be working on them.
Yeah, I'd just like you to elaborate a little bit, would you please, on the accessibility regulations. How is that measured? What would we have to do to not comply?
So, I don't have this particularly just to hand. So there's a website criteria which is the WCAG AAA standard. That's a standard measure of website accessibility, which basically determines things like font size, how reactive it is when you change the size of the page, things like contrast ratios between colours. For example, if you've got white text on a coloured background, you need to make sure you've got enough of a contrast difference so that people can see it, and things like that. That's what the kind of accessibility regulations particularly adhere to. What our scanning tools do is they basically run automated checks against that standard and then report back to us on the kind of performance against that standard. And that gives us one insight into the website. And one of the reasons why we're particularly keen, as I say, to work with Daisy is to get that real world experience, because the standards go this far, but we actually want to hear back from real users of our services to really understand whether that's enough for them or do we need to do more.
Thank you, Chair. I've got one point about my own personal experience with the online forms that we have. You can complete a form and off it flies through the ether. And my experience is I don't get any response. I think that needs to be looked at. I'm still waiting for replacement recycling sacks. Having attempted twice to order them, that's my own example. I imagine a lot of people are also having experience with that, and I think that needs to be looked at so people know that the application has been seen and acknowledged. And for councillors, I know one of my colleagues prefers to do an email rather than a form because an email can be traced, whereas a form often can't be. Thank you.
No, that
The
sounds.
councillor expect a reply?
Well, yeah, there should be. So there's a lack of feedback there, so you don't actually know whether or not the form's been sent and whether or not anybody's ever seen it. So I think that's a point we can look at. If you can let us know the precise details.
Angela, does that happen frequently?
I'm only talking from my own experience, but, you know, I haven't had to use it very often, but I had a resident who needed more green bins. And so I said, well, your landlord can get those for you, you know. So when I got home, I thought, I'll just have a look at the process. And it wasn't intuitive. And some of us have more intuition than others. It should be obvious, I believe. Whatever, you know, you should be able to get to where you want to go in a certain number of steps. Once you get beyond maybe 3 or 4 or 5, then people will give up. You know, we've all tried phoning and phoning a number and saying, well, you have to wait until you get any other options at the end of all the recognised options. If anything else applies, push number 4 with a telephone call to the council. It's like that with a website sometimes. It should be straightforward and as direct as possible without too many steps, because some of our residents will not use this process very often. And we know that some like to be very independent. They don't want to ask a neighbour. They don't want to go to the library. They don't want to ask family. They want to be able to do it. And again, the green waste bins experience a few months ago showed that. So I think it's got to be simple, clear, and economic in the number of steps that you have to take.
So Ian, is that within your remit to make that happen?
So I think I would agree with you that basically things do need to be simple. They need to be focused on the important data that we need to collect. I think one of the challenges is collecting sufficient information that we need behind the scenes to deliver service and balancing that with keeping it as straightforward as possible. I think that there are some improvements we can certainly make. There's a lot of work that's going on behind the scenes to basically have a look into a lot of these things, and you may see sort of small improvements, and then you might see some fairly significant improvements coming. But yes, I'm always very interested to hear feedback on kind of whether our forms are too complicated. And as I say, you're all very welcome to email me if there's a process that you think is overcomplicated, and I'm always happy to have a look at that.
So there you go.
Can I add? I had a query with the county council. It said, did you find what you wanted? So I said no, and somebody phoned me up within an hour. I was really surprised, but impressed.
That's good tip there for us to follow. So, Ian, you know what my question is going to be because I've emailed you millions of times about it. You just want to give me the answer.
Would you like to say it anyway?
Of course I will. But I get cheesed off every time I send anything to Here to Help, getting a reply from them saying, it's the reply to my question, and it says from, no reply at Gloucester, Here to Help, Gloucester.gov.uk. And people in my neighbourhood, when they get that and it says no reply, what do? They call me. And then what happens then? Somebody says, Gravel's has sent too many emails today. It's a vicious circle. And there's no way around it because when you email Here to Help, the reply says no reply Here to Help. And people just, well, in my area, a lot of people don't give up. They contact me. And then that's another email for me, and I was hoping you were going to say, yeah, I can guess what your question, because you've banged on about it for so long. And the answer is, we haven't used it for the last 14 days, and you haven't noticed.
So I can update you on that in that, so there are primarily there are two forms that residents use to contact us. One is called Contact Us, which is a sort of universal way of getting in touch about really kind of anything, kind of in a sort of what we would call in a sort of unstructured way. So anything that really doesn't fit the sort of catch-all of kind of reporting, fly tips, things like that, comes through Contact Us. The other one is Report It, which is used more for our sort of location-based specific stuff around, say, fly tips, abandoned vehicles, those sort of issues. We have made a change about 2 weeks ago, maybe 10 days ago, to change the Contact Us form so that now replies from Here to Help. So that should be able to be replyable. So that was changed, I think it was changed last Wednesday, so less than 10 days ago. We get around about 700 contacts through those a month. So we're expecting that to make quite an impact. We're going to assess how that goes. And if it goes well, then we'll move it on to Report It, which has a higher volume of calls. But we wanted to make sure that we weren't kind of what we would kind of call activating the law of unintended consequence.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Linda?
Yeah, my problem with Here to Help, the other week, I had 3 reference numbers for the same job. The job was created, I was told it was completed. I then went back on that reference number and said, no, it's not been completed. They then came back again with another reference number. I then went back again, and 3 times So I've now got 3 reference numbers. So when I go back to them, I have to refer to all 3 reference numbers.
Yes, so we are aware of some of the challenges in some of our systems, and we are investigating them. It's a little bit early days to be able to kind of really disclose what we're doing because of some contract negotiations that we're looking at the moment. All I can say is kind of watch this space, we're making improvements. If you do have specific things around that, as I say, you're very welcome to email me and we can have a look and investigate, because again, it's really useful, helpful feedback for us to have around kind of the particular circumstances that are causing that to happen.
Can I also ask, can councillors have priority as well? So where you've got highways, you've got a highways councillor, can Here to Help have Here to Help councillor? So we get a quicker response than members of the public.
So
Fast track then, that's what I want.
If you're formally moving that, I'm happy to second that, councillor.
So I will very carefully avoid setting policy here. I would say that if you email Here to Help from your councillor email address, we have a 5-day SLA on responding to you. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily we can resolve your issue within 5 working days, but you should get a substantive response. So happy to share some information around that. But if you contact Here to Help from your council email address, you should get a response within 5 working days. It may have a response that says we need this extra time to deal with the thing you've raised, but you should get that response.
Chair.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. I was just asking Lauren if we can have a short update report from you guys on this, maybe in 6 months' time.
I anticipate that will be the case.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Nothing,
Because
not a
this
huge
is
item on the
just the
agenda,
start.
just an update.
Yeah.
It's okay. See where we got to. We're a new committee. We're still finding our way, but there seems to be agreement for that. Take another look in 6 months' time.
Can I just suggest that other proposal, if you want to have a proposer and a second round vote for it, I'm sure the Cabinet could look at it.
Okay, cool. Stephanie Chambers.
Thank you, Chair. One thing that Andrew mentioned is obviously you get chased by members of the public. They have a certain expectation of what they think we should be doing in responding to them. Is it possible to create or do some work around a standardised footer of, so you're saying you've got a 5-day response to us. Our residents quite often expect quicker than that from us and we just don't have the answer. So could you create a standardised footer for us that gives a bit of explanation so the members of the public, we could sort of set their expectations of what they can expect from us, because otherwise they just think we're the ones ignoring them and not responding?
So do you mean a standardised footer on the on emails? Sure, we could do that, yeah.
Yes, we can look at some wording for that. There should already be a standardised footer, basically with some GDPR information and things like that. So we can have a look at some wording and circulate and agree something, I'm sure, for that.
So we'll put this on the agenda for October, an update, all these points that are going to be looked at. Okay, I think that brings that one to a conclusion. Didn't think it would take quite that long. But Ian, Declan, thank you for your patience answering our questions. So Declan, you might as well stay in that chair. That's okay. I don't know if you need your advisors to come and sit by you. But we've got, so it's the financial outturn for 23-24. Can we just take it that we'll take it, Declan, that everybody's read that report. Quite a long report, lots of information in it. So Declan, just if you can do it, just a brief introduction, then we'll have more time for questions and comments. Please, thank you. Great, over to you and your team. Thank you.
Okay, everybody's favourite report. Okay, a few things. First of all, the sort of good news is that things have improved from last quarter. I don't know if you recall, the last few of these quarterly updates have been concerning, to put it mildly. Although the final outcome is still a decrease to the general fund of 288,000. This is an improvement on the previous quarter's report, and it's actually 60,000 better than the 5-year money plan that this council approved in February. But I have to say that, you know, we're not out of the woods yet, and the council's finances are still something which we have to keep a very careful eye on. The key pressures are still there, and you will remember from the last time that it's still essentially a temporary accommodation costs, which they do show an improvement of 116,000 thanks to actions by the officers. Plus, we got a rough sleeping grant of 117,000 from the government. Energy costs is also still a key pressure. In particular, with the leisure services, they have an overspend anticipated, well, a final overspend of 640,000, which is the same more or less from what we were anticipating in Q3. This is because they're operating to a fixed budget, and we're confident that they will continue keeping to that fixed budget. Bereavement services is another area of concern simply because of the higher gas charges. So they do have a deficit. They did have a deficit for the end of the year. In mitigation, we have been carrying out property purchases to deal with the temporary homes issue. Longsmith car park was also another issue, but it's partially back into use. Grants and Sport England to install solar panels and heat pumps at GL1 should in time tackle the high energy cost issues there. There will be new cremators at the crematorium, will be replaced with more energy efficient ones. And we've also benefited from a refund of the business rates paid from 2011 to 2023 of £400,000. So that's given us a boost. That's been quite a long running saga. So in summary, there are still issues. We still need to be careful, but you know, we will continue to monitor this very carefully. Happy to take any questions.
Declan, thank you so much. And you know, from now on, you'll be the cabinet member who'll be responsible for the reports, not the previous members. Cool. Questions, comments? Questions, comments to Declan? Steph, it's always, what's wrong with you guys on this side? It's always this side. Stephanie and then Linda.
It was really just a comment quickly about process in relation to this form. I know it used to be very frustrating for Hannah that she'd get lots of questions on housing and I wouldn't be here. So sometimes if we are going to want to really scrutinise housing or something like that, you know, it might be better for Declan that we get the actual cabinet member in so they can give the facts.
Hi. I recently went to a meeting I was talking to the went to a meeting this week with the university, and they mentioned that the library going into Debenhams is going to be delayed again. Will that have any effect on the financial situation?
Greg?
The library going into Debenham.
To the old Debenhams.
It shouldn't have any impact on ourselves because that's the library's the county council and Debenhams is the university.
Right, okay, that's fine. Sorry.
Well, it could potentially, in the sense that we had an occupant in the building, or is that county council owned as well?
Excuse me, clearing my throat. Angela.
Thank you, Chair. I've got some random questions. This is my go at asking stupid questions.
That's cool, because I can always come in, so don't worry about the stupid questions.
Some acronyms that I don't know about, understand. But I'll start at the top. We bought some properties to turn into council houses, I understand. Do we know how many properties the city's bought as yet? It's a very precise question.
The report says several, but several can be a bit of
I think it's
6.
It's a hesitant 6.
Okay, thank you. Southwest Regional Development Authority, is that SWRDA? What does that relate to?
It relates to, it's the Southwest Regional Development Agency. It's a historic agency, again, dates a long way back in time. The properties owned by them were handed to the council's ownership many years ago. There's a ring-fenced element of any income from, or the net income from those properties, which one is the Southgate Moorings car park over the other side of the docks. That gets ring-fenced into a regeneration reserve for a certain period of time, which is still in play.
Thank you. Talking about funerals, what happens for deceased people who have no assets and can't, their estate can't pay for a funeral? Is that a very common occurrence, and what impact does it have on our income?
It's not a common occurrence, and I only say that because we have, at the present moment of the last year, we've been having to fill in Competition and Market Authority reports, which everybody that runs a CREM has. When it does happen, there is a national assistance programme, and we get a certain set amount from them. So yes, we wouldn't get the full amount that we may need to charge for to cover the costs of a funeral, but we do get something.
Thank you. Next question is with regard to the Guild EPOS, EPOS system. What's that?
Sorry, I should have made that. It's the electronic point of sale system, or the till, in simple terms.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Planning policy made a £7,000 loss. How do we distinguish between planning policy and other aspects of planning? How is that broken down?
Planning policy is linked to the overarching city plans, and which Councillor Gravels knows a lot about, but it relates to the policies that are applied by the city and the broader county, if in terms of the joint strategy, to planning. So there's surveys and consultants and various things that are put in those plans together, to those the high level plans that guide how we then grant planning permission. And that's the distinction. The development management or planning side of things is the income that we get in for looking at planning applications and then working through them and approving them.
And planning applications are, the cost of those are set by government, I believe, so we have no way of increasing. So at the moment, we're probably making a loss on private residence planning applications and hoping to make more out of bigger developments.
The level that it doesn't actually work. It's not as simple as that, in that it depends on whether the building is an old or a new one. Actually, the Debenhams building, which is a massive building, actually didn't generate as much income as a new development would, to put it in simple terms. The actual amount that we can charge is a statutory amount, or it's controlled by the government. In the last Parliament, or last parliamentary session, they've passed some legislation to allow at least, I'm going to say, it's either an inflationary increase, it's either CPI or RPI, probably CPI, given that's the current measure. So there is some way to go up, but it still leaves us short.
Thank you very much. That's all for me. Thank you.
Yeah, they were all good questions too. Well done. It's cool. And what about this side? Well done. Anne.
Keep the honour of this side of the table going. I can see in the report that it talks about improving and planning to improve the facilities for cremation to reduce the gas costs. Were there any other methods of dispatching the bodies of the dear departed considered?
The answer is, I believe, yes, and I believe that what's been looked at is slightly different. I'm not going to go any further because I don't know the details, so apologies.
Well, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Come around the table. Anybody else? So, just to recap, and I did talk to Greg last week just to make sure I've understood, not misunderstood the situation. The forecast at the end of quarter one in the year we're looking at was for a deficit, quite a large deficit of 1.5 million. Is that right? And so by the end of the financial year, that's been reduced to 288,000. And I'm definitely not making a political point. I'm making a point about the diligence and the professionalism of the team sat either side of you. That is not bad, is it? You've got to agree. And I think we should give the advice that you get in the previous administration got. We should take note of that. And it was good advice, and that's some movement from 1.5 million to just under 300,000. As you said very, very well, we're not out of the woods yet. But it's worth marking, we're not here as a scrutiny committee just to look at things that have gone wrong. We're here to highlight examples of where things have gone really well. And whilst you wouldn't think this was really well ending up with 288,000, given where we began 12 months earlier, it's pretty good. And I'm sure a lot of authorities would welcome that percentage change during the year. So I just want to place that on record from this scrutiny committee to your team.
Can I just come back for that, Chair? And I'd say it was a whole council achievement. It wasn't just a finance thing. It was really impressive to see that the whole council came together when we saw that we had that challenge, and everybody worked together in order to for each departments in order to make sure that we had a much, although still a deficit, a much better position than when we started in quarter one. So thank you.
Sure. No, that's absolutely right. And I'm sure that Councillor Stephanie Chambers is going to come in and agree with you and give us an example in, random area in particular.
No, I just wanted to firstly thank Andrew for bringing that point, because I think Greg was very humble then, but, he was quite new to the position. We were in a situation and, Greg and the team led by Greg really did, make some really good decisions and, make some changes. And one thing that I would note, and it was one thing that I said when I went to a conference, is that was a significant challenge within the temporary housing, and like we get significant challenges in other areas. However, what came out of that was not only, paddle our way out of a situation, but actually the services improved because of that. So we've got some, homes for families, without shared facilities, and I think that's fantastic. So what came out for a dire situation was some improvement in service, as well as keeping the figures in check. So thank you to everybody that was involved in that.
So, anything from this side of the room? No, we'll swap them around next time. Okay, so you got off really lightly there, but maybe not next time round. Okay, Judge Declan and your team, thank you. Okay, so almost on to the last item on the agenda, Gloucestershire Airport update. Is that you as well? Yeah. Okay, so the reason we asked for this to go on the agenda is because when we were looking at our work programme, that was one of the issues that kept coming out. Are you with me? Let's take a look at the airport. You look confused.
Gentlemen.
Say again? I thought he was going home.
No, he went to get some water.
Okay. That's cool. Cheers, Declan. Okay, so leader of the council. Okay, Mr. Hilton. So I was just going to explain to you, I think you know why anyway, we've got this on the agenda. When this committee, this new committee were looking at our work programme for the next few months, Gloucestershire Airport kept coming up. And I think the reason it kept coming out was because not long after the May elections, we all, as councillors here in Gloucester and also in Cheltenham Borough Council, had this letter from some tenants out at the airport which raised certain issues, and I think that sparked the desire to take a deeper look into the activities at the airport. So we're just beginning our review of what's going on at Gloucestershire Airport, the policies that will shape its future between Gloucester and Cheltenham. So you're first on the agenda to just give us your thoughts as the lead member on where you think the airport is and where it ought to be going, and then we will shape what we want to look at. We'll scope that out, reflecting on what you told us. Hope, looking at the committee, that's a broad summary of what where we've got to today. Going to give a few nods. Yep, that's good. So Jeremy, over to you. Thank you.
Well, I think some members of this council might not have been aware when they put their name forward to stand as a councillor for Gloucester City Council that we actually owned Gloucestershire Airport, 50% of it, along with Cheltenham Borough Council. So there's two councils having 50% ownership of this asset in the middle of the county. The Liberal Democrat manifesto, which we won the local elections on, says that we will continue to support Gloucestershire Airport to remain an important aviation and high-tech business hub that provides for locally based skilled employment. I think there's about 400 or 500 jobs directly related to the airport there. And there's quite clearly some that's skilled aviation-based jobs. So that's our concern, that whatever we do in the future, we do what's best to maintain that general aviation airport. For some history, we've owned it since the 1930s, and I was on the board from 2007 to 2015. I was the vice chairman of the board and then the chairman of the board, and I was responsible for the runway safety project, which we delivered on budget. So that's where we are at the moment. There was discussions at the end of last year about interested partners or people interested in purchasing the airport. I fleshed them out to some extent at this scrutiny committee when I sat over there. Nothing's happened since then. The decision was that there would be no decision to put the airport up for sale before the local elections. But since that time, first decision we made was to appoint Ashley Boquet to the airport board and replace the previous member on there. We thought it most important that the nominee from the Gloucester City Council was a member of this local authority, and he's going to be providing myself and Declan with quite a bit of information that we can get on what we do about the future of the airport. We've also, both Declan, myself and Ashley, met managing director and his staff to have a good long conversation about the airport. Greg was there as well. I've also had a meeting with the other shareholders, so that's the leader of Cheltenham Borough Council, Rowena Hay. We've had a conversation about that. And at the moment, we're studying all the information, gathering as much information as we possibly can before we decide whether we actually make a decision on whether to put the airport up for sale. It would be put up for sale as a going concern. I'm completely open-minded at this point in time, but I haven't honestly made a decision on whether I think I would want to recommend the sale of the airport. If it went up for sale, marketed, we'd have to see what came back as well and what the offers were and whether they were reasonable offers. And we've got to make sure that the airport continues. We've got to protect all the businesses and the people that operate at a Gloucestershire Airport. It's vital for the economy of the county and also, as I said, for jobs and for businesses that are based there. The work that we've been doing has been a bit delayed by the general election. Rishi Sunak has caused a bit of disruption to the new administration and trying to bed in. And there have also been holidays. I had to wait for some time for Jason Ivey, who's the managing director, to come back. But that's where we are, Chair. As far as that letter, we all got a copy of it. It was anonymous. It made comments about one individual at the airport. As far as I'm concerned, it's an anonymous letter. And if it's not if there's no way of responding to them, there was no email address to email back, no postal address, then unless it's corroborated, it hasn't been, I won't take it any further. I usually dismiss any letter that is anonymous, whoever it's from, because you don't know whether the facts that they're suggesting are true facts. If somebody really has a point to make and concern about the airport, then the easiest thing to do is to write to me so that I can write back and say, can I have a chat with you? But that wasn't the case with this letter, so I'm not taking it any further. I've just read it and put it on file.
Okay, but there are occasions in areas around whistleblowing where people do want to write anonymously. And that happens. We get those letters and emails as councillors, not that frequently, but we do get them. And people say, I don't want to give you my name, don't want to give you my address, but X, Y, and Z. And I'm not saying at all that as soon as we get one of those letters or emails, we spring into action and saying, you know, this is happening, this is happening. You sit back and you have a look at it again the next day, maybe the day after. And I think the one with the airport was so serious, we decided that it merited that as something that we ought to look at in conjunction with other work around the airport that we might wish to look at. And I don't see anything with great respect that you've told us this evening. I don't see anything there that would make me anyway want to change my mind and say, okay, let's leave it. Let's forget this letter and what the contents say. Let's forget it, just ignore it. I wouldn't be prepared, I wouldn't be too happy recommending that to the committee. And I think at the very least, we should do a little bit of homework of our own as a scrutiny committee and just see what turns up and then decide where to go and when to go with it. You refer, and you're absolutely right, of course, the joint ownership is with Cheltenham. It would also be interesting to talk to the councillors in Cheltenham to get their take as well. We don't act as a solitary scrutiny committee when there's another local authority involved. So I think the least we can do is talk to them, see what their take is. So that's where I think I would recommend we go. Stephanie.
Thank you, Chair. And I just really want to support you in that, what you just said, because although I'm not taking anything of gospel of that letter, and nothing I'm going to say is in relation to what is in that letter at all. However, you think about situations that have occurred around the world in this country. You look at the post office. Now, somebody might have done something like an anonymous letter because of the situation, their personal situation. It doesn't mean it should get ignored. I think it does need investigation. And I think that is our responsibility. We've all been written to, and I think it is our responsibility to do our due diligence to see if there is anything in that at all. And I'm not making any reference to the allegations at all. But however, that is our responsibility to do that, and we should be doing that. How much effort we go into, that has to be weighed up of what can be verified quite easily. But I think we do need to probe into those questions, because what are we here for if it's not to do that kind of thing? And not everybody, we're all councillors and we've put our head above the parapet and we're used to getting shot down and we're used to debating. There are some people, we don't know that person's situation, whether they could just be a random troublemaker, no idea. But they could be somebody that is genuinely concerned and didn't know what else to do. So I think it's really important that we listen to them and, do as much investigation as we possibly can with Cheltenham. And I don't know if Cheltenham received the letter.
Thank you for that. I think the idea of working with Cheltenham is the right one. And those of you who came to the training session we had with, not Camilla, Queen of England, but Camilla, who works for the, what's the title of the organisation? Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, said that if you can do joint scrutiny, go for it, because that's the best scrutiny when you're working with another local authority. That may well be that Cheltenham Borough Council say, we don't want to talk to your scrutiny committee, but I think at least we should give them the opportunity to share the concerns that we have and to put two heads together, because two heads are always better than one. So I would encourage the committee to keep it on the work plan, not to go on a witch hunt or taking everything in this letter as gospel. So, you know, says it here, it must be right. And I keep coming back to the fact that nobody, particularly the staff side, the officers, should ever forget this is the scrutiny committee. This is what we're here for, to scrutinise. And I think that's what we've been charged with, and that's what we should do with the example of this letter that we all received just after we were re-elected. It was clever timing on their part, by the way. It's that got general agreement, and we can, the three of us, can look at the scoping side of it, then come back to you. Does that sound reasonable? Getting sort of nods of approval. Greg?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I haven't seen the letter personally, so I don't know the full context of it. But I was just wondering whether this is something that might be able to go to the, you mentioned it was like the whistleblowing kind of letter, so I don't know if it's something that the airport have their own whistleblowing policies or anything that might be worth referring to at all?
But I think this was whistleblowing to us. It's been given back to locally elected councillors as the custodians, if you like, the elected representatives of Gloucester and Cheltenham. If they'd wanted to get the people at the airport to do it, presumably they would have written to the people at the airport, but they didn't. They wrote to every single councillor in Gloucester and in Cheltenham. Yeah, sure.
I mean, the letter isn't an internal whistleblowing letter. It's a letter signed the tenants. You know, if there are tenants that have got a problem and are concerned about the management of the airport, then the easiest thing to do is to write directly to me or to give me a call and speak to me about it as one of the representatives of the shareholders. That's not been the case. As I said, it was an anonymous letter, and anonymous letters don't carry the same weight as one where it's not an internal whistleblowing thing. It's a direct complaint about some of the policies of the airport, and these are from tenants. So the best thing to do is for the tenants to make contact with me so that I can respond. What they didn't do was give any reply address or any email address or any way that I could get back in contact with the people that wrote the letter. And therefore, it's a difficult. You know, I've read the letter. I understand what the letter says, but I need them to make contact with me directly so that I can talk to them, so I can find out what the information they're suggesting and see whether there's any truth in the matter. But at the moment, they haven't done that. As far as the work of the Scrutiny Committee, that's entirely up to you what your work plan is. It's entirely up to you, and I won't give you any direction on that, but I'll just make it quite clear in the public domain that those people that wrote the letter, or one or two of them, they need to make contact with me, and I would treat that contact in confidence. But it would be useful for them to provide the evidence to substantiate some of the claims they've made in the letter.
So I welcome the fact, excuse me, I welcome the fact you're not going to try and steer this committee into taking one course as opposed to another. And you've got a reporter here who will, if he chooses to report what you say, usually does. I'm with that. And you will find that you will get the responses that you're after. And that's one way of looking at it. But I think also, just picking up Steph's point, that the letter is just one small part actually of the work that a scrutiny committee could do. I think you said it very eloquently. You know, we can either run with it or just turn our backs on it. And I wouldn't feel very comfortable just turning our backs on it. I think the comparison with the post office is perhaps a little bit, I'm not so sure they're going to reveal anything to that extent, but it's the principle, isn't it? It's the principle where people went to the people who were running the post office and said, oh no, it's not that, don't worry about it, it's nothing to look at there. And to their credit, that, you know, the guy who's just got the knighthood, he pursued it. And that's what I think we should do, not because we want any knighthoods knocking around, but I think it's, as a scrutiny committee, it's the right thing to do. Sorry to be a bit light-hearted about it. It's a very serious subject. So a member's okay. If the three of us, it's a non-political thing, knock it around and scope it out and come back to you and say, this is what I think we ought, this is what we think we ought to look at. Are members generally happy with that? It's okay?
Yeah, generally, yes, but I think we ought to be looking at more than just that letter. I think we ought,
Absolutely spot on.
Yeah,
No, absolutely. And
we need an overall view
Sure.
of the way, and we need to consult with Cheltenham as well.
Sure,
so,
absolutely.
And yeah.
To cut you off, I'm very keen that we do work with Cheltenham. You'll have seen from Lisa, who I invited via Jane to come and talk to us. I'm much more interested in eyeballing people and talking to them face to face in meetings like this, rather than reading a letter which somebody's run off and who knows what's behind it. So I've sat here before, I'm sure you have as well, Jeremy, and Declan as well, when we've had representatives from the airport come along and give us some information. Just leave it like that. Sorry. No, I say sorry. It's cool.
Just one thing. I'm using your line there. Just one more thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I wasn't obviously saying it was like the post office at all, but it was the principle of it.
Yeah,
It is the principle of somebody says something, and obviously it has been reported that there are questions about the airport. These are tenants. They're obviously worried about their livelihood, their businesses, their jobs. You know, so maybe they don't want to rattle the cage with putting their name up. And yes, in an ideal world, we'd like to know more from them. But if they know and they feel confident that we are going to look into it, and there will be, you know, we've all heard about landlords' retribution, and that's in the commercial and residential areas. And I'm not saying that the airport would do such a thing, but tenants would still be worried about that. So I'm not saying it's an actual fact, but the worry and the anxiety is there for them. So I don't think it's wrong that they wrote in that way. So I think it is worth an investigation.
Let's make it quite clear that I won't sanction the airport or the board as a shareholder, representing the shareholder, any retribution towards any tenant that comes to us to say that they're concerned about the operation of the airport or concerned about this or that. They can come to us. We can have a meeting with them and listen to what their concerns might be. I mean, the long-term future of the airport is critical, not only to the county of Gloucestershire, but also to the tenants and to the businesses that operate there. And that's our priority. But sending an anonymous letter isn't entirely helpful because you can't follow it up. Maybe having this debate this evening, being in the public domain, might mean that some people will get in contact with us. But rest assured, we will not sanction any retribution. And if I find out that somebody at the airport within the management team does that, then there will be questions to be answered. We will not allow that sort of thing to happen.
That's really reassuring for anybody who might want to write to you. Thank you for that. So I think we've got general agreement around the room that the three of us will get together, if that's okay, and run it past you guys. Is that okay? At 8:30, just looking at Lauren again, we're supposed to take a vote, aren't we? Is it 8:30?
You are, but you are also coming to the end of the agenda.
3 hours, isn't it?
Okay, we're what, sorry? No, absolutely, we're on the last item of the agenda. So, say again?
I thought it was 3 hours. Or was that just the council?
There's 2 hours. So for the new members and for the new member, and not quite some new members, including myself, up to 2 hours we're required under the Constitution standing orders to take a vote. We just carry on. But as Lauren rightly points out, now we've agreed the airport one, we're virtually at the end of the meeting. And the only item on the agenda now is the work plan. And can you leave it to us three guys to come up with the work plan, taking note of what's been agreed? I think we've more or less got the September one. If so, that's really good, getting lots of notes of approval. So we're nearly there. So my last point I want to make in closing the meeting is just thanking people for coming. And I've said a couple of times already, we are a new committee. You've got a new chair. I'm not used to chairing this meeting. So any feedback you've got, don't write to me anonymously. I don't want any feedback from Councillor Hilton. But well, I do actually. Anybody actually. That's a joke that could backfire on me. But no, just send me some feedback on how the meeting's been run, what you thought went well, what didn't work well. And I'm never too old to learn new tricks. But any comments quickly before we go? Not long speeches. Any comments? Enjoyable, not enjoyable, unpleasant, useless?
Beware the press are present.
Anyway, we're all putting it as a new committee. We try to be fair. And that's it. Just is 8:30 on the dot. We close the meeting. Date is next meeting. Everybody knows that, don't they? When is it? When? 2nd of September. And 2nd of September, I'll put my apologies in for that because I'm on holiday, I think. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for your contributions. We'll muddle up. It's a bit like, what's that programme on the telly where they muddle all the teams up? The Apprentice. We'll muddle all the teams up next week. So we haven't got all the people on this side asking all the questions, but we'll swap you all around. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye. Safe journey home.